Hi, everyone, and thanks for being with me. Today, I'm doing something a wee bit special. I'm talking to a very close friend of mine who started his own YouTube channel called Perspectives with Avery. And I've invited Avery on my show because Avery's got a lot of really valuable things to say. And in a moment, we'll just find out what they are. So one of the issues that has been particularly of concern to me, and is certainly something that Avery has delved into and knows a lot about, is actually the issue around fascism. Now, fascism has been used in the United States to describe the one and only Donald Trump, and we're here to discuss the impact that that has on the US elections, and probably even more importantly, we're going to decide what fascism actually is. So welcome, Avery.
Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate. And it's good to have you on my show. I don't often have visitors here. I have invited people to come and have a chat to me, but no one's ever taken up the offer. And this is what it looks like when you have a chat. So
Yeah,
thanks for coming on board, mate. And perhaps you could start off by telling us a little bit about perspectives and what that particularly is.
well, I've been uh, really interested in politics, religion, things like that for decades, and I've been for quite some time now, a year or so. I've been talking about or thinking about creating my own channel, and only about 6 or 8 weeks ago, I created two of them, and I've put up about 10 or 12 videos. They're not doing brilliantly at the moment. I don't expect that they will ever do, but uh, there I've done some. The perspective one, which is my main one, is my views on things like fascism, religion, politics in general. You know, economics, just things that I'll see on the news or TV pique my interest, and I'll use my long experience in writing to
Mm.
generate. I don't, I don't wing them. I spend a lot of time
You
researching.
do, and I think that's kind of what I recognise as being different from what I do, because I just spout whatever's on my mind, and hopefully it works out okay, and then perhaps do a little bit of editing to cut out the crap that I've said. But in your case, what I really do admire is that you've chosen to dive in with a script that's got a lot of thought and a lot of, I guess, a lot of research has taken place in the stuff that
Yeah,
you've done.
yeah. I recently uploaded one. I can't remember what I called it now. It was to do with Donald Trump.
Yep.
I called it fascism: the disturbing truth about Trump. And what I did with it was uh, I've thought for a long time that Trump was a fascist, and after hearing something on CNN or MSNBC a couple of weeks ago, I thought, is he a fascist? Is he really a fascist? And what I did was I looked up what's the definition of fascism. I looked up other characteristics that a fascist displays, and I found an article. There's a magazine in the United States called the Free Inquiry magazine, and in 2003, Dr. Lawrence Britt, he's a political scientist, he wrote an article where he defined 14 characteristics of a fascist. So I then spent about 3 days reading up on and looking on what Hitler had said, the most infamous fascist ever, and said and did, then compared all of those 14 characteristics for him with things that Donald Trump has done and said, and created my video and uploaded it, and it's. I think I've had about 49 or 50 views. I'd like to have had 500 or
A
5,000,
thousand
but
or
yeah,
50,000 would be good.
yeah, it,
And
it
I
would
think
be. But
so. What? Okay, then, Avery. What did you discover about the relationship between Trump and um, other other defined fascist leaders? Then,
I didn't look into people like Mussolini or Urban. Uh,
well,
what's his name?
Urban's a bit, Urban's a bit current, isn't he? So he's
Yeah,
current.
Franco was. I didn't look into those. I could have done. I mean, I do know that Mussolini, for example, he didn't round up an ethnic minority and execute them, murder them. Franco didn't do any of that. I decided to go with the extreme that we had in the extreme example in the past, which is Adolf Hitler,
Hmm.
and the somebody is Trump really a fascist?
So
And I say those 14.
what conclusion did you come to then in relation to Trump?
Well, when I compared his actions with Adolf Hitler's against those 14 characteristics that Dr. Lawrence Britt came up with, Trump checks every box, all 14 of them. Some of them weren't as extreme as he hasn't rounded up people and put them in camps, but he's promised he's going to do that, right? Uh,
And, and I guess for me that's one of the key issues, though, is that uh, Trump hasn't necessarily done many of these things that we would say makes him a fascist. Yet many of us would think that he has fascist tendencies. So is he a, when? So the question for me is when do you think he actually becomes a fascist? Is it the rhetoric that leads him to that, or is it only when he enacts those particular beliefs?
well, it's both. I mean,
Is it?
you can have all the rhetoric and not have the power to actually enforce it, right?
Yeah.
But if on January the 11:59 a.m. on January the 21st he is sworn in as president, he said, "I'm going to be a dictator on day one." No person has ever been a dictator on day one and stopped on day two,
Yeah,
right?
but I guess yeah, and I guess that's my question is that if he um if he doesn't, okay. So let's say, for argument's sake, he doesn't become a dictator on day one, that's just hyperbole. Um, does that does that still make him a dictator?
It makes him a wannabe dictator. He just doesn't have the power,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
So at the moment,
He's
one could
sitting,
say he's a wannabe dictator. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, he's if he was sitting behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office, excuse me, I am 100% certain that he would start up those camps and round up people and push them into it. I'm
Yeah.
not saying for 1 second that he's going to build gas chambers and crematoria, right? I
I
don't think
mean,
he'd do that,
heaven
right?
forbid. But yeah,
But one of the things that when Hitler first started up, he didn't say we're going to round up all the Jews and kill them. He said we're going to round up all the Jews. We're going to deport them to Madagascar.
mm,
Not all of them, every Jew that he could find in Europe, he intended to deport to Madagascar. There was a big problem couple of problems he had. One was that he didn't have enough um, ships to carry people from. He'd have needed thousands of ships because there's 8 million Jews in Europe. He'd have to round them all up, and then a ship carrying say 2,000 people. How many ships would he need to do it all in one go? How many ships would he need if he did it in batches of? If say he had ships, he could move 10,000 at a time. Right? It was just too impractical. The other problem he had with that one was he had a thing called the Royal Navy in the way,
yeah, yeah.
and they would have not allowed it to happen.
I
Right?
also saw someone speak about this the other day, and they were saying that it is so impractical and so costly to send millions of people out of the United States. Number one, would he have the legal authority to do so? Number two, would he be able to contravene those legal requirements? And number three, I think, was the cost of it all. And then there was a fourth factor, which was simply the fact that there would be countries, as we know in Australia, who would not want these people back,
Yeah.
who would simply
Uh,
decline. So these people, in effect, would be stateless.
yeah. Well, on the point of uh, would he do it? Right?
Mm.
Yeah, he would. Right? And the hell with the consequences. Has he got the legal authority to do it? If he's a dictator, yes.
So, and
Right?
that's part of
And
his stick, I think, about getting rid of the Constitution, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
if you can get rid of the Constitution, he actually can do whatever he likes.
and
But I still wonder. I guess I'm a bit curious as to whether or not within the American system that is possible. But I guess one could argue if it was possible amongst the German system back in the 1930s, then perhaps anything's possible. We
When
don't
you've
know.
got sycophants who will bend to your will, and Trump has said he wants, he wants to get rid of all the what do you call it, career civil servants.
Yeah.
Uh, he's going to he's been, he's appointed Christo fascists to the Supreme Court to bend to his will. I've stopped. In fact, I said Supreme Court. I've started calling it the Extreme Court of the United States because the decisions they've made just recently are extreme. How can Donald Trump, how can any president be immune? Their job is to ensure that the laws of the United States are faithfully executed. They swear an oath to do so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet the Extreme Court of the United States has come up and said, no, it's okay. If it's core presidential duties, he's fine. So the argument that was put forward, if you remember, was that he could order SEAL Team 6 to go and kill a political opponent just by saying he's a clear and present danger to the United States. Right? Go and kill him.
Yeah.
Now, if he has, if all he's got is um, drooling sycophants surrounding him, and all the people like Elon Musk and not Esper, Miller and people like that.
Oh,
If
Stephen
he,
Miller,
Stephen Miller,
isn't
if he's
he?
got,
He's just, he would have to be one of the most, he looks evil, let,
yeah,
let alone
yeah.
thinking and behaving in an evil way. He
Every time
is,
I see him, I picture him
yeah,
with that
yeah,
little
yeah. I mean,
mustache here.
I think for Halloween, he doesn't need to dress up.
He
He
doesn't
could just go from
scary
one
enough as it
place to
is.
the other and scare
Yeah,
people and say, "Well, if you're an immigrant, I'm going to take away your children and lock them up and put them
yeah.
in cages," which is what he did before. Yeah.
And the other thing that Trump said was that he wished that his generals were more like Hitler's. Hitler's generals swore fealty to him, not to Germany or the German people. So Trump wants the generals in the U.S. armed forces to swear loyalty to him, and
I
if
love
they were to do that,
Yeah, yeah. I love the bit though where Kelly apparently told him, because Trump has no understanding of history. He said, "Well, you were aware that some of his generals tried to kill him."
yeah,
So and Trump's thinking, "Oh well, perhaps that's not such a good idea after all."
yeah.
So,
I didn't put it in my video, but I discovered. I looked up how many times had somebody tried to assassinate um, Hitler. It was
mm.
183 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I tell you what, they're not very successful, were they? I mean, how they could have changed the world and saved millions of Jewish lives if they had.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Oh,
so Trump. So what are you saying, that there's still 100 odd times that someone needs to
uh,
assassinate
that,
Trump before he matches Hitler's?
to achieve Hitler's record, he's got to go at another 181 attempts. I hope it
Right.
doesn't happen. I don't want to see
So
it.
let's not support that notion,
No,
but
definitely not. I want to
it
see.
does, but it does go, but it does make you wonder. It begs the question, though, Avery, that if Trump gets in power and is so toxic, how many times the CIA or somebody will attempt to find a way to take him out? Like they've done this
Yeah,
in other countries quite successfully, and we think of Gaddafi and others. So they've clearly done it elsewhere. So what would happen if it happened in their own country? One wonders.
I think every dictator in history has had that sort of thing, that sort of attempt made on him.
Yeah.
I don't see why Trump, uh, if he became president again, I I think every other week there'd be an attempt.
And like Putin's petrified, I believe,
Yeah,
of being assassinated, and
yeah,
Kim Jong Un is
yeah.
the same. They're totally
Well,
protected because
you've seen Putin with that table when he's having a meeting with his cronies. He's sitting at one end, and about 30 yards away is the others.
yeah,
You
that's
know,
that's partly because he's also a germaphobe. But
yeah.
that,
Well,
he
Trump's a
he and
germaphobe.
Trump he and Trump have that in common, though. I
They
think.
do. Well, one's a dictator and one's a wannabe dictator.
Yeah,
Uh, they're both germaphobes. They're both hateful people. You
yeah.
know.
So
Um,
one of the things I wanted to ask you in particular too is like, do you think that here in Australia, that there, and this is a question I mull over all the time, is it likely that here in Australia we're likely to find the influences of the United States? So let's say Trump wins, and whether or not the style of politics that is Donald Trump will be expressed in Australia. So Australian politicians will look for this same sense of popularism in order to be effective here, if you know what I mean.
I wouldn't say that it's impossible, but I do think it's less likely to happen here
Yeah,
uh, than in the United States. We do have political division here. We do have partisan politics here, but not anywhere near the extreme that they've got in the United States. So I don't think we've ever had a case where the government has actually been shut down because the opposition party wouldn't allow the funding.
mm.
There was that
Mm.
thing with the Whitlam dismissal where it
Yeah,
came very close, but since federation, uh, they've had that, what do they call it? Supply. That's the
yeah,
funding of the government. They've never ever refused to do it. The Whitlam case was close, but it never happened because Kerr stepped in
yeah,
and sacked
yeah.
him.
Yet in the United States, the issue around supply is a continual issue, though.
Yeah,
That's so, um, and it doesn't present itself very often here in Australia. But I guess my fear is that people like Dutton and others, and whether or not the right wing will become more dominant in Australian politics to the point whereby someone will latch on to this notion of populism, like, Babbitt and Antic and even Pauline Hanson. Um, may latch on to this idea. I mean, Pauline Hanson was pretty successful at this in terms of her, "I hate Asian" speech back in 1997 or whatever it was.
yeah,
Um, and that did get a bit of traction. And we know that from the Voice campaign that racism is pretty rampant here in Australia. And even though we're one of the most multicultural nations on this planet, there's still a sense of resentment against immigrants, which in itself is a bizarre notion, Avery, given that we're all immigrants apart from Indigenous
absolutely.
people.
Yeah,
So, I mean, what do you think about all of that?
we are. Racism is it's been around for centuries. One thing that a lot of people always seem to think is that racism is one way. It's white on anybody who's not white. One of the most racist countries on the planet is Malaysia, where the Malays, the indigenous people there, they discriminate. They're racist against the ethnically Chinese that live there. It happens everywhere, right?
Yeah, I think they're racist against the Indians too, aren't they?
And the Indians, yeah,
And so it's where so what one could say is racism occurs where the dominant race, which is Anglo-Saxon in Australia, I guess,
yeah,
um, chooses to refer to denigrate or dismiss the other, which is
yeah.
whoever is opposite to that.
Uh,
So one could define it, so not necessarily as colour then, but I think it's a good idea. That's a good way of defining it. It's not about colour, it's about how one perceives oneself against the other.
uh,
Yeah.
a thing that I think contributes to it is religion, right?
Oh,
I'm going
so,
to do a
so
quick
Avery,
plug
are
for
we are we about to head down your favourite path now? Are we?
uh,
Do you,
I'm just going to give a quick plug to my other channel. It's called
oh
the
no, that's fine.
Evangelical
Go for it,
Atheist.
man. Go for it. I'll
Right?
leave it up to you now. Go for it.
Yeah, so the Evangelical Atheist is the second channel I've got. There's not much on there, but one of the reasons I say that religion is responsible for it is that for uh, centuries, religions taught that people who weren't white were descended from Ham, the third son of Noah, who rebelled against his dad. And Christianity has been teaching that all those people they're not quite human, right? They are
Mm.
lesser because they're evil because they Ham, who they're allegedly ascended from, was evil.
Yep.
Um, there's been people like Dwayne Gish in the United States. I think it's Dwayne Gish. But anyway, one of them, one of the evangelical Christians used to teach that they were only fit for servile and mundane matters. Here in Australia, uh, we all know about the stolen generation where children were taken away from indigenous families, and that where were they sent? To Christian missionaries, to Christian missions, where they could grow up to be useful citizens and learn useful trades like how to be a cook or a maid or a servant of some sort. They weren't sent to university, they weren't sent to schools, just how to be a good little Christian rather than and do servile and mundane things. And it was a despicable way to treat people, and
And
that all
I think,
came
I
from
mean,
Christianity.
well, I think one of the and one of the Christianity's got a lot to answer for, man. I can agree with you on
Yeah,
that. But and one of the other things that interests me about all of that is that on the basis of immigration, that when you send a lot of the immigrants back to wherever they came from, whatever they do, um, that has a incredible impact on the gross national product and
yeah,
efficiency, because all of those immigrants wind up doing the jobs that most other people, the others,
yeah, yeah.
would choose not to do.
Here,
And
here,
like picking a fruit and all those things you were talking about.
here in Australia, the my son Luke was a butcher for a long time, and he was telling me once that the vast majority of people that work in the abattoirs are immigrants.
Yeah.
People from Malaysia or Indonesia, Somalia, wherever, because white people don't want to do that work.
Mm.
It's a disgusting job. With the
So,
smells and the
so you're
everything else
saying
that
that
comes
some
with
of
it.
those ideas come from Christianity?
Not that particular idea, but
No,
you know, we'll only employ coloured immigrants to work in abattoirs. No, I'm not
no,
saying.
you
I'm not
don't think
saying that.
that's not a Christian belief.
But
I just wanted to clarify that, Avery,
yeah,
just in case we're
but
barking up the wrong tree.
what I'm saying there is that the inherent the view that people who aren't white Anglo-Saxon Protestants are somewhat less than everybody else. That comes from race. That comes from Christianity, particularly evangelical Christianity.
Yeah.
Modern Christians will say, "No, it's a religion of love." Right?
Well, it's supposed to be.
And they'll say it's inclusive. If it was inclusive, why are there
Do they?
42,000 denominations?
Do you think they lose sight of the fact that Jesus was an Arab?
He wasn't. He was he was a Semite.
Well, close to it.
Yeah,
But
and
I guess from
I'm very
that
very
country,
clear on that.
did he have the coloured skin that
He
kind of
he would have
Anglo
looked
Saxons
like
have?
he would have looked more like Yasser Arafat
That's
than
right. That's right.
than uh, than the
So the very
blonde or the light haired, light skinned, blue eyed guy that we see the pictures of.
so
That
the very
that
people that they're anti in terms of this cut notion around colour is is symbolic of the type of person, perhaps, or representative of the type of person that Jesus may have been.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you something as well.
I
I
think,
reckon
hey
that
Avery, I think we should have a conversation just on religion at some point.
I think we should.
Yeah,
Back to the United States
please, let's go
and
back there.
Trump and fascism and things like that.
Yeah,
And Jesus. If Jesus was to return today and go to the United States, Trump would have him deported because of his brown skin, dark eyes, right? He's not a white Anglo Saxon Protestant.
came from a different country.
Came from a different country. He's one of those brown people that we can't trust because
That's
they're
right.
rapists and murderers and drug dealers and
He
they
would
come out with
do
insane
whatever to the.
asylums.
He would he would harm. He would he would. What does he do to the blood of the people? He would
Poison the blood of the
poison the
people.
blood. That's it. Yep, he'd poison
Guess,
the blood of the people.
guess who else said that?
Oh, Hitler said that.
Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, yeah. So that brings us back to that notion around fascism. So
Yeah.
the language. So come back to that. So the language that we find Trump using is just fascist language to start with,
Yes.
isn't it?
Absolutely.
So because you use fascist language, you are then a fascist. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
why do the Republicans refer to, because this fascinates me, because they refer to the Democrats as being fascist, communists, and Marxists.
Well,
Just,
when
just let's finish off this discussion with that. Where does all of that come from, do you think?
well, firstly, when they say they're communists and fascists, that is like saying an apple is an orange. You know, it's saying like a fruit is also a vegetable, right? Uh, you can't, you know, one is on the far right, that's the fascism. Communism is on the far left. They're polar opposites
Oh, that's
in
a good point. I like that.
yeah.
So how can you have
You
some?
can't
Yeah,
be
so you're right. So if one's extreme right, one's extreme left, how can you have something that represents both of them? Is that what you're
uh,
saying?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, good point.
Say fascism is far right politics.
So
Communism is far left.
So I want to know what my mate Steve, who often looks at my channel, what he says about that. So what comments? If you've got to make a comment, so I'll just put that up actually. So if you've got to make a comment about anything here, please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, complain about Avery. That's fine by me. Just say what you need to say, and then we'll blame Avery for it anyway. What do
Well,
you think,
if they
Avery?
want, if he wants to complain about me,
Yeah.
all right, as Kamala Harris said, say it to my face. Go to my Perspectives channel, Perspectives,
Yeah.
YouTube.com/ at Perspectives with Avery, and say it to my face.
Well, and they can, and they could come. They could, what would be interesting would be to get some of these people that complain bitterly to come on my channel with you and me, and
Yeah,
we could have a situation where we have two or three people come in and challenge us about some of these views that we might have. That'd be kind
if
of
they've got
fun.
if they've got the courage.
I doubt it.
Yeah, me
I
too.
doubt it. But
I
anyway,
mean,
but
I don't know if you, very quickly. I don't know if you saw it. There was a on the Abby Phillips show.
Mhm.
Uh, they had Mehdi Hassan and that guy who made the joke about
Oh
Puerto
yeah, I
Rico.
saw that. Yeah,
You
yeah,
saw
yeah.
that. He didn't have the courage to stand up and defend his position. Good on him for going on the show, but when he was challenged, he backed down. Back,
Yeah,
you know,
and good on Abby too
kicking him
for
off.
standing up for
Yeah,
Mehdi Hassan, and that she apologised on behalf of the network, saying that this dude will not be returning. We
yeah.
should see more of that, and we should see more of it from freaking Fox News, which if they did that, wouldn't have anybody on their station whatsoever.
They would.
So yeah,
They'd lose all their commentators for a start.
they would. They would.
Yeah,
So, Avery, thanks for being with me. I really do appreciate it. It's been great being able to have this chat with you.
yeah.
And it's a new format for me and seems to have worked, which I'm really quite delighted about. So, and I'd just like, so thanks, mate. Really do appreciate it. And I'd just like to thank all of you that have been able to watch this session to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and to ring the bell for further notifications. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.